My financial well-being is better when I set goals because you wake up with so much more purpose.
I want to empower people to make their own money. When we are well, then everything else is going to be better because of it.
I wake up fulfilled every day, ready to tackle what the world's put in front of me.
I'm Candace Parker.
I'm Koya Webb.
I'm Eric Bruner-Yang.
And we want to be able to have that strong foundation of what is my purpose, what do I want to do, and how do I want to live for the rest of my life. Hello, I'm Candace Parker, WNBA athlete, broadcaster, mom, and today, your host. Welcome to the Capital One Cafe. Capital One recognized that financial well-being is better with overall well-being. Because if you think about it, well-being is a blend of so many things. It just makes sense. So they created their cafes to be places where anyone can come and relax, reflect, and recharge. And now they've extended that virtually and created a space for inspiration and what we're here for today, conversation. And that's also why I get to chat with the people sitting with me. Koya Webb, a blend of wellness, visionary, educator, and founder of Get Loved Up. Koya, thank you for being here today.
Candace, I'm so excited to speak with you and Eric. I mean, it's such an honor. I'm ready to dive deep into these conversations for our community.
As well as Eric Bruner-Yang, chef, entrepreneur, dad, and founder of the Power of 10 initiative. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to finally meet people and make new friends and be around each other. I feel like we've been talking to each other for the last couple of months separately, so I'm happy to be here and to share what we can give people some advice on.
Let's do it. I want to say hi to everyone watching right now. We're excited you get to do this with us live. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments, make sure to send them in the chat to the right of your screen. So,
all right,
guys, without further ado, let's get to it. Today, I want to talk about something that I think is near and dear to all three of us. And that's money and values. Specifically, that no matter what your budget might be, we can make financial choices that align with our values and who we are. And you know, a lot of young people, especially now in their 20s and 30s, the pandemic, debt, recession, they aren't in the same position as past generations at the same age. But I guess the best thing is that they still want to do social good. They still want to have social impact. So if financial worth doesn't determine social impact, what are the things that matter most when making a difference? Koya, I'll start with you.
Oh man, that's such a great question, Candace. I think when it really comes down to it, it's about knowing your purpose. Sometimes we want to do it all. You know, we want to help everyone in every cause, but it's really about knowing your purpose and having those conversations to find out what communities are in need and what do they need. All the times, it's not money. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's using our platform for good. It's so many ways that we can make an impact. So my biggest advice is for people to give back in different ways, financially when you feel motivated, but time, devoting your time or using your platform to speak out for causes that are really gonna make a difference. Those are the ways you can really stand for social impact and not feel like, oh, I don't have enough money to make a difference.
And I think picking back off of that, it's also just having this like healthy relationship with yourself. And then, having that purpose and that value where you want to align yourself with things that are similar. So if it's not like you can't immediately go and go do the social impact cause that you want to align yourselves, work at a place that has a similar value to you. I think there's that market now, and businesses are really trying to make sure that to attract workers that they want to have the same value set as them and the same causes.
Mm-hmm. And I have so much hope for this generation just because I feel like people are doing that. Like people are aligning, not just like now it's like if you buy a brand of clothes, you need to know exactly the message and the story behind that business.
Right.
And I think that this generation really is doing their due diligence with the information age, of course. But a lot of society tries to align your self-worth with your financial worth. And, if you have this huge platform or you have all this money, then that means your worth is more. Can you speak to that? And how do you go against that grain of your social impact and your social worth is basically aligned with financial worth?
I think that is one of it's duality. It's like it's great we have this social platform, we have the social media platform where we can do good, but the other side of it is measuring our self-worth with the number of likes, the number of followers and things like that. And I think it gives us the opportunity to realize that we all have a purpose here. We are here, we all have a purpose, and realizing that purpose doesn't all live in social media. I think the biggest way to make an impact in the world is starting with self and aligning self, like seeing what our fears are, what our limiting beliefs are, and making sure we are expressing fully in everything that we are. And then realizing if we just impact our family, if we just impact our community, that is amazing. Because sometimes if you get so caught up in like that outward impact, you lose yourself. You're not spending time recovering yourself. You're not spending time with your family. It's just all about taking a picture, and it's like, wait a minute, you just left your family hungry and like everyone wants to talk to you, but you're so busy with the phone in front of your face and you miss out. So I think when we really reel it back to making the biggest impact, it's really tuning into yourself, saying first, am I aligned, or am I trying to do what Candace is trying to do? What am I trying to do what Eric is trying to do? Or am I really aligned with my purpose in doing what was meant for me?
And if there's anything we can take away really from the last 12 months is that I don't think any of us could move forward if it wasn't for reaching back to family members and community leaders who kind of really kept us all together and try to move forward with a positive outlook on life. And it forces us to pause and really just focus on our mental health, our physical well-being. And I think if you, like you mentioned, if you take care of those things, it helps you decide, what's next steps you want to take, and the financial part comes secondary to making sure that you can move forward in that direction.
And I agree with both of what you had to say. And I think that the best advice that I've ever been given for that was the what and the who. And making sure that you can decipher between the two. Because the what can be your job, what you go dedicate your time to, but your who are your values, your circle, what's most important. And I think if you have a great value of those two things, that they are separate, and one doesn't determine the other, then through the highs and the lows you can ride. Whether you get laid off from your job, or for me, you have a bad game and you lose. Like, you aren't what you do, you are who you are. And if you're able to do that, then I think, a lot of people now are realizing it's so important to be able to separate the two. And especially now millennials, if you think about it, more so than other generations, they're following their passions.
Right.
And it seems as though both of you all have followed your passions. So what would you say to those out there that are scared to kind of make the leap, or, want to follow traditional goals and are scared to kind of take that chance to do what they really want to do?
As a small business owner, I find, I'm always surrounded by young, creative, people in our workforce. And they remind me a lot of when I was young. I started working in restaurants when I was 15. 20 years later, I'm still working and cooking all the time. But that was my dream and my passion. I meet these young adults every day where necessarily restaurant work isn't what they envision themselves doing in the long run. But I also see them move and act with such fearlessness, this drive to make sure that they make the time for the things that they really love. And my job really is just to support them, create an environment where they enjoy the process of work, because I think work will always be important. If you do something that you're passionate about, like all three of us does, it's still work, and there's a part of it where we have to turn off and train and really master our craft. So getting them to develop good habits like that, so when they do decide they want to make a leap in their creative endeavors into a real business, they have all of the tools that they need to know how to properly function in a business environment.
Absolutely, I agree. And I love your initiative with the Power of 10, really empowering. And I think when we empower someone, we're uplifting the entire community. And when we start and realize we can have our own businesses, we can make our own money, it's empowering beyond feeling like you have to go in and do something you're really not passionate about. And to your point, Candace, we all, I grew up in Tennessee where my family was like, what are you gonna be, a lawyer or a doctor? What's it gonna be? In this traditional sense, but now I think more and more the present generations are just like, you know what, I can make a living doing what I love. And I think the more we encourage that passion and give them the tools of, how to build your team, how to be responsible, and how to really know that those limiting beliefs in your head are just in your head. If we can do it, why not someone else? And I think it's really about getting that confidence to say, you know what, yes, I can. If they could do it, I can too. It's just going to take a lot of work. And it's not easy, but we all know that. I mean, we go through, the days are not easy, but I think the more, especially with social media, we're showing the hard part. We're showing the struggle. We're showing the dark days and showing how we get past those days. And I think that's really empowering for the future generations. With my group, my Wellness Entrepreneur Mastermind, the biggest thing is self-care and really conquering limiting beliefs. Because once you conquer the limiting belief, it's just about consistency.
Right.
And so once you have that consistency, you fall down, you just get up more times than you fall down, and you're winning. And so I think really in that space of empowering, the more that we encourage people to get up more times than you fall down, the more we're starting to see people not being afraid to try and not being afraid to fail.
And I like that, getting up when you fall down. And I think you're more likely to get up when you fall down when you're doing something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And so with that, I would say, obviously chase your dreams. And we understand that, financially, it can get tough at times, but I feel lucky because I get to do something I'm very passionate about. And I know a lot of millennials maybe watch their parents do a job that they didn't necessarily, love or weren't happy about. And to me, I think in order to be completely fulfilled, you spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
You have to kind of enjoy what you do. So if you have that choice, you definitely have to do that. Yeah. And I think as millennials, 77% of millennials say they feel financial anxiety due to the pandemic. But at the same time, 75% have sent some kind of financial aid to family or friends or donated to a nonprofit since the pandemic began. You both put a lot back into your community. So how do you find that balance of making sure that you yourself are taken care of, but also that you're still supporting your communities and your family?
Yeah. I think the reason I created my company, Get Loved Up, is because I realized I can't love others to the detriment of myself. So I want to give to every cause and I want to help others, but I realized I had to help myself first. I had to make sure my rent was paid, my bills were paid, and then not give from an empty cup, but give from the overflow. And it was a quote by Lisa Nichols, like, fill your cup and give from the overflow. Let people sip from your saucer. And that's really what helped me realize that I have to establish my self-worth, learn how to build myself up, and then as I'm giving, I'm gonna have much more to give to others. I'm gonna have much more to give to my community. But when I give everything away and I'm drained, I'm tired, I'm resentful, I'm overworked, and that's not productive over time. So once I created that with Get Loved Up, I now teach others, love yourself, love others, love the world, in that order, because that's more sustainable over the long run.
Yeah, and for me, at the beginning of the pandemic last year, I started the Power 10 initiative almost really as a form of my own personal therapy. It was like, what do I know how to do? I know how to cook. Who are the most important people to me? My family, my community, the people that work in our restaurants. And if I don't have those things, and at the time there was just so much uncertainty, I would feel extremely lost. So we just channeled like the basics of what I know, cook and nurture, and just extended from there. So we started the Power of a 10 initiative, feeding thousands of meals to community members in need. And by doing that and raising money, we were able to keep as many people as we could employed in multiple restaurants, not just my restaurant, but restaurants all along the block of my street where, I would hate to not be able to see Chef Peter, And so that was really the mission. And every day with this uncertainty of like what's gonna be tomorrow, essentially, that was my way of healing and staying healthy through this time, was just, let's just channel it to, food is nurturing, and that's what we wanted to do.
And it's clear that you all are very passionate, and it shines through, because I think when you're helping and you're passionate about something, it definitely can inspire others to do the same. And, we have a lot of young people that want to make an impact. We have a live stream event question that says, what advice do you have for those that would like to make an impact in their communities, but don't feel like they have the power to do so?
The most powerful thing that happened to me was recently I received a letter in the mail. And in the letter, the person was just like, I'm not in a financial place to make a donation. I'm living with my mother and I can't order to-go food, but I just really wanted to write a note and say, thank you for everything you're doing. We went to your restaurant 3 years ago. Please keep your head up because I can't wait to come back. And you're really making an impact, and watching you do something is really helping me go through this process. And that little thank you note, that carried me for so long. I tell this story all the time because it was just like, hey, who gets like a letter in the mail, And it was just so special to open this letter, and it was so thoughtful. And I think thank yous really just go so far in building a relationship from the ground up with a simple just hello and a thank you. You never know what kind of doors that's going to open up for you, and you don't know how you're going to be able to impact someone's day just from that.
Just from inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so much like what we stand on. And you never know what something as little as a letter could do for somebody to get them up every day. And, I think just in terms of not worrying about how many people, I think at this point in time, people worry about platforms in the millions or in the thousands. And it's like, if you can make a difference in one person, like if one person can say that they were inspired to do what they love or to get up and get out there and try, like you've made a huge impact.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I love that story because it's like people don't understand how powerful just waking up and being kind is. Waking up and saying yes to life and smiling when everyone else is crying, that's an inspiration. Because we've been through a hard year, and sometimes just seeing another person smile or seeing another person wake up is powerful. I just had someone send a video and say how much that our Get Loved Up platform had changed their life, and I was just like, wow, and we just posted it today. And that's gonna inspire other people like, oh, well, if she could do it and she was sad and feeling not so good, then I can do it too. And I think realizing that when we tell our stories, no matter who we are, we're gonna inspire someone. So it doesn't matter what we're coming from, telling your story and having the courage to tell your story is what's really making an impact, especially on social media. And like you said, Candace, whether it's like one person or 10,000 people you're telling your story to, it's gonna make somebody get out of the bed. It's gonna make someone say, yes, I can too. If you can, I can too. And that's important because they're gonna say, oh, I don't have to be a chef. I don't have to be a basketball player. I don't have to be an entrepreneur. I could just tell my story. And the more we have people doing that, it's a ripple effect. Like Nelson Mandela said, each one teach one, and each one of us has the power to teach another.
And Koya, you said something the other day, and you said something about, everybody thinks that financially helping someone could be just giving them money.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's giving them the tools to go out and do something that they want to. And you said something the other day about showing someone how to start a profession or giving them the tools to do so, which in essence helps them financially as well because they're able to have a career later on.
Absolutely. This happened with me with my sister because she's a single mom, 2 beautiful girls, and we just had Mother's Day. And we give cards and flowers and things like that. And I was just like, spent 3 days with my mother. And then I told my sister, I was like, you know what? She has her hands full. Let me just take the girls for 3 days. And she was like, this is the best gift you could have given me. Just a break, not $100. Of course, that could be useful too. But just giving her that mental and physical break was the best gift she said I ever gave. So that reminded me that that presence and that time spent with people is more powerful than anything. That thank you letter, that phone call, like that can really make someone's day even more than just, giving the money. So I think especially with millennials having the big hearts of gold, realizing that your time, your letters, your voice is as big of an impact as $1.
Yeah, and I think also because we all live in so much on the internet, it is really important, and now as the world opens back up, to rekindle and recreate physical connection and communication. Because I think having a personal connection or intimate relationship with the organizations you are interested in and donating to, and seeing the people and meeting the people that are doing the work, I think that is really huge and part of someone's own personal growth, to be able to have that kind of real physical connection to something that before is just kind of like an intangible send kind of situation.
So you're basically saying everybody's going to have to not do the business up top, party down low. You're going to have to put on a full outfit to go to meetings now. That works, I guess. That works. But honestly, I think the pandemic has definitely shined a light on the fact that everybody had a different viewpoint and a different experience with the pandemic. Right. It was a storm that was the same storm, but it impacted people in a different way. They say that 40% of millennials have moved back home as a result of the pandemic in order to reprioritize spending. What do you think that this says about us as a group?
I think if you didn't use that opportunity to reprioritize, I think you missed an opportunity, essentially. I mean, in some sense you were forced to, and people had, as you said, varying experiences, but I closed 3 restaurants. I had 5 restaurants, and now I just have 2, and I closed 3. And a part of me was, why was I doing so much? I have 3 kids at home, and this time that we're spending together is just like the first couple of times that I haven't, read them a story to bed over the last year. And I think I don't want to not have that again. So I think it's important to think about what is important, because time has an infinite value. It's what you place on it, right? And I was always traveling, working, cooking, and forgot that I have these 3 beautiful beings at home. And so I think reprioritizing is important. And there's nothing wrong with living with your family. My Asian culture, it's huge, and I don't think anyone should think bad about it, to be honest.
I love that, Eric. And I feel like for me, I was always on the go, flying here, flying there, retreat here, retreat there. And spending all that time at home really allowed me to connect more with myself and realize that you don't have to go that much. And not traveling that much gave me more spiritual time, more meditation time, more time to work through some pain and healing that I had to do. It also helped me make more phone calls, talk to my family more. So now I'm actually more connected to my family and my friends just because of slowing down. And it made me realize we actually do more when we move slower and more intentionally than when we're going, okay, next thing. And as an entrepreneur, that can be easy to slip into, because it's always okay, I can do more. But now it's made me look more intentionally with how I'm moving in the world and saying, no, you actually can do more when you do less.
Yeah, and I think companies see that, that they can do it. For the last year, people have been working from home, and a lot of people have been working from home, and they can still prioritize. People can prioritize and balance and find the time to make that. There's some people that will want to go back to the office, and hopefully that choice will now exist for people. And I think that will open a lot of doors for people to be able to, do their work and their what and their who, that you talk about. And I think that's going to be a real big difference moving forward.
Reprioritize. I think the best advice I got through the pandemic was that no is a sentence. Mm-hmm. And I think before the pandemic, a lot of people could never say no. It was no because, or no, I want, but no is a sentence. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to have your boundaries as to what you want to do and what you are able to do. And I think a lot of us were able to have that reset during the pandemic. Yeah. As a result of there being nothing open and not being able to go places, but also kind of getting back to your roots of having family time, of slowing down and actually learning to, I learned to paint and do things like that for the first time. And so I think, this can be a good reset for everyone coming out of this, to kind of learn to prioritize. Why can't I say that word?
It's okay.
Prioritize.
Goodness. It's not a name. You're not messing anyone's name up, though.
It's not that hard. It's reprioritize. Let's talk about budgeting. Mm-hmm. I think social good is a part for some people of what their budget monthly, yearly is. Is social good a part of your budget? And if so, what is your approach?
I think it's really important to give how you feel led. I mean, growing up as a Southern girl, it's like 10% to church, 20% to church, 10, and for me, it was good training because it's like you give to those things that are giving and nurturing to you, and you give to those causes that are close to your heart. And for me personally, not only do I give to places that spiritually nourish me, but I also give to, like, my students. They open their own companies, so I want to give there. And pretty much every day I'm on this like anti-racism newsletter, and they have thousands of causes, and I just give where I feel led, and I feel like I have specific money budgeted to give to whatever I feel motivated to give to. Then I have a specific budget to give to specific things, and I think it's really good to have some type of give back, even if it's not financial. Again, like we talked about earlier, it could be with time. One thing I must call out, though, is feeling like you have to give to everything, and that that you're talking about, because naturally, most of this generation, we're yes people. We want to give and give and give, but that saying that no and creating healthy boundaries and not feeling like I have to give to every cause Eric gives to, or I have to give to every cause you give to, Candace. I think that's really important because there is a lot of pressure now. It's like every day you can get in your DMs, like, 20, 30 different causes, but you have to, give to the causes you're aligned with. So I've had to learn to say, I'm giving to the causes that I'm aligned with. Thank you so much and good luck. And I think that's really important, especially as an entrepreneur, as you're growing, to make sure you're always giving, not feeling pressured to give, but giving to those things that are in alignment with you.
Yeah, I think also just general budgeting is important. And, one of my biggest regrets was not starting to save in my early 20s. You always read the article, start saving when you're 20, start saving, you'll retire a millionaire, But the fact is that, especially if you're getting a paycheck, there's always a little bit of money being taken out. And so you're already kind of used to that happening. And there's so many opportunities for you to move away 1%, 2%, things that could have very little impact to your overall financial needs that over the course of time, 20, 30 years can make a big difference. And I think, with people having so much more access to information, they have a much better understanding, or they can help themselves have a better understanding of how to grow their money with small interest rates over time, how to do things and save through different investments. And I think, the digital age makes that so easy. You want to buy 0.10% of one Apple stock, and that can grow over time. The money you have today that dollar is not going to be worth $1 next year. It's going to be worth less. So you have to, you want to just move a little bit at a time, and you can decide if you want to donate it, or you can, I think, all of us as people of color, I think it's really important for us to focus on generational wealth for our kids, because, that doesn't really exist in our communities. And, I've met so many people that have opened their parents came here as immigrants and opened up a restaurant and worked 25 years and, and that's it. And then their kids have to do the same thing. And so it's really about figuring out how can we break that cycle where you don't just work 25 years and the next generation has to keep doing that, where we can kind of slowly establish our families to have these little generations where they can have a little bit more comfort.
Generational wealth. And I would like to add generational experiences, because I think the more we are open as a culture with people, because, growing up, we didn't talk about finances at all. And that was something that you just didn't talk about. And now I find myself trying to share with my daughter certain causes that we're, giving not just financially to, but our time. And I think people think that social impact is just financial, and it's not. It can also be your time and what you're giving to it, and, things like that. So I think just as a society, millennials being able to budget, like you said, and make sure your cup is full, and then be able to help your community. We have another live stream question, and they're asking, how have your values evolved as you've progressed through your career? How have these shifts influenced your financial situation and choices?
Wow, I think my values have always been around impact. Making an impact, and I value, being able to make an impact and being able to live my purpose. So if I can really affect and inspire and educate. That's always been my number one. And then making sure that I'm in alignment with my purpose. Because I did a couple of things. I always encourage people, do whatever brings you joy. I talk to people about create a love bank for yourself, and everything you love, put in there so you can do it. Everything might not be your career, but really put it in there. So I really value doing what you love, and that being in alignment with your purpose. And then if that makes an impact, bam, you have a career. And then it's about finding out, okay, how can you make an abundance of that, whether it be giving your, building a community, or maybe just working within a family business. I mean, it can really make a difference in the world. So for me, it's those values have evolved over time, because I realized that when you're not on purpose, when you're not in alignment with your purpose, there's a lot of disharmony. It's like you have to try hard, you have to force it, you're out of balance. And what brought me back into alignment was just my spiritual practice every day, prayer, meditation, yoga, practicing things that move energy. And then overall well-being, like really focusing on what am I eating every day? Am I getting 8 hours of sleep? Am I taking care of myself? Like those practical things you do every day to give yourself the nourishment and the energy, and also make sure the people around you, the people you work with are well too. And then those two things affect you doing your purpose and being an entrepreneur when those things are in balance. And so now my value is like, number one, and the pandemic helped with that, because I realized it's not just about getting a massage and a mani-pedi. It's about having enough sleep, spending time, sometimes I skip meals, We've all done it, you get
Eric's
through
like,
who, me? You get
Not
through
me.
the day. And
No, I just mean he's a chef. He's like, you don't skip meals.
right? And you just had a juice, or you just ate the sides of every dish. And you didn't really sit down to enjoy and smell your meal. I mean, you smelling meals all day, but you didn't get a chance to sit down and enjoy a meal. So I just think having that time with yourself and really focusing on your spiritual connection, your connection with your inner self, and then that well-being is going to impact your company in the biggest way. So now that's how my value system goes, just really that self-care, and then really focusing on well-being of yourself and your family. And like you said, spending time with family and realizing you can build all this career, but then what if your family doesn't feel like they have time with you? What if they're missing you? Then what's missing there? Can there be more balance?
It makes you more stressed out.
Exactly. Because it's like, wait, I'm bringing in all the money. Why are y'all still unhappy? And your daughter's like, I just want a hug, so.
It makes you more stressed out.
Yeah. I think just prioritizing self-care and prioritizing well-being will help enhance whatever career anyone decides to do.
Yeah, and I've really focused just at being a better listener. Mm-hmm. And I think that has made big changes for me over the last 6 months. What I do and what I was doing, opening restaurants, it was so like ego driven. Here's my vision for the restaurant. This is how I want the restaurant to be run. These are going to be the steps of service. Okay, this is what we're going to do. And even though I felt like we had an open workplace and that was really diverse, it was really just like, I didn't really understand how my behaviors or my emotions for the day, whatever weight I was carrying, would impact people so heavily. And I think what I've really tried to do is just focus on being a better listener. And there was, when you do something for so long, there's always this assumption that, when you have a conversation with someone, you feel like, I already know what they're gonna say, and you're just like, okay, can you get to the point, blah, 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 But it, like, allowing that person the time and the space, even though if you have an assumption of what they're gonna say, just letting them finish and listen, I think is like healing for both people. And that's really my biggest value that I've changed, is making sure I give people the time to let them to listen to what they really have to say.
That's like a daily struggle, I think, for a lot of young adults, that you think you know everything at that age. And then as you get older, you realize that you need to listen and you need to get back to the roots of, your upbringing. You say please and thank you. You are respectful. You look people in the eyes. I mean, I guess you don't handshake anymore, you elbow, but you do. I'm still trying to figure out what you do. But I think that's super important, because I think as you get older, you realize, like for me, I had all the energy in the world when I was young. So I could clean the house, I could go to practice, I could do this. And now it's like my priority is making sure that I'm able to spend time with my daughter. And I think from that turns into how I'm spending my money. So now maybe I'm spending more so on the convenience of being able to spend that time with her. Whereas before it was just, I'm going to do it to save, this or whatever. So I think that, in a year where every single dollar has mattered, like never before, how did you guys prioritize your budget? How did your families prioritize your budget? And then also as a business, prioritizing what we're spending on and the things that maybe shouldn't have mattered, that obviously matter now.
I think I understand my business's finances more than I ever have because, in order to survive, we had to apply ourselves for just so many applications of aid and really diving into and having an understanding of okay, what have I been spending? What has this restaurant been spending all its money on? And I think that's what was really important about just going back to the basics and the fundamentals. You need to cook something and it needs to go from point A to point B. And that's really as simple as the restaurant industry is, and it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And I think that was huge to kind of just go back to the basics of just small business in terms of the restaurant. And then for home, being at home, we just end up spending a lot of money on hoping the kids don't buy too many Fortnite things and these things like that, and downloading games. But when you're just around the people you love, you don't really need to spend a lot of money. You just want to just make sure you keep the roof over your head, and that there's food coming in the door, and then you have each other, and that's really all you need.
Subscriptions. I'm sorry to cut it, but I literally before the pandemic had an issue with some subscriptions. I would have them, and I would forget.
Yeah.
So it was like pandemic was a reset where I went through and was like, wait, now how much am I spending on, because sometimes you
all of a sudden you have 20 channels.
Yeah, you have 20
what
channels and we have all these different, and it's just what do we need all of this for? So I think it also is a reset to kind of check in on your budget and make sure that you're spending and you know what's going out. I think a lot of people don't know what's going out, and that's a problem because then at the end of the month or the beginning of the month or whatever, you're confused at the end of the year as to how you spent this much money on whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And financial coaching helped me a lot. Even now, I'm always a student. I'm forever a student. And I think it's important for us always to be constant students and learning more and more. So anytime there's an opportunity to take a class or take a session that's going to teach me more about my finances, I'm tuning in. Because like you said, Eric, not being afraid to ask for help is a big thing. Some people are so afraid to just ask for support. And I will tell you right now, I took some support. I definitely took some aid and some grants. And I think it's so important to not be afraid to ask for help. Help, like we said before, not just financial help, but maybe you need to, I built my team. I had to have more people on my team, and I had to, take grants and take loans and things like that. Because, as I'm growing, you need more, and then scale back some places. Like you said, with the subscription, where am I spending money for a service I'm not even using? What things can I do within myself and my community and my family that I'm outsourcing and I'm not even happy with it, right? And so I think monthly we should look at what we're spending and say, okay, what things do I want to keep? What things I want to let go? What things do I want to upgrade? And I feel like it's just so simple, but we rarely do it. And we've gone 3 years. I've had this for 4 years and I've used it one time. Yeah. So I think just really looking at it practically, and saying just being aware of our finances, I think is empowering and powerful to help us prioritize where we're going to spend our money.
Yeah, and I've been really focusing eating healthy over the last couple months, and watching what I eat and categorizing what I've been eating. And that's almost the same for finances, knowing what's coming in and what's coming out and having a really good understanding. In the first 2 or 3 months that you do it, you're this is really tedious and blah blah blah, and I don't have the time for it. But it's almost like wearing a mask. It's as soon as you get a rhythm, it takes a couple months to develop a new habit, and then the next thing you know, it's just natural. And someone could be hey, what was the $98 transaction that happened? And I'll just know. I'll just be oh, that was we purchased this, and it could be from 2 weeks ago, because you're just so in tune to what's coming in and out, and you can do that with your own physical being, and it's just as easy to do with your finances.
I like that analogy, and additionally, I think with we all have navigation, so you punch in, and there's you want to get there exactly at 4 o'clock, and you end up getting there at 4:30,
except for today,
4:15, or something like that, right? Because of traffic. You have to have that built-in buffer.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. I think people sometimes they stretch to every dollar, but some things are going to come up, and you have to make sure that you have that built in. And then also, I like additionally what you said, ask questions. I think our younger selves were so scared to ask questions for fear that we were going to seem like we didn't know what's going on or whatever, but that's like the best thing. Raise your hand, ask a question, and have people that can really help you and walk you through what things mean. Because, not everybody remembers their class from, senior year in high school about, consumer ed and,
Right.
how to do things. And so I think that's super important. We have another live stream question, and it's asking if you all could give yourself, financial advice, your younger self financial advice, what advice would that be?
I personally wish I started building my credit earlier, So for me, for some background, I worked at Mrs. Tyndall's popcorn factory at the mall making caramel popcorn. That was my first job. And working all the little food stalls in the mall. And I saved all that money, and that's how I paid for my first year of college. I just kind of worked and saved money and paid for college. And I think there's an opportunity for you at that young time to really start building your credit and developing a healthy relationship with your lender and your bank. Because if you do it early, it really allows you the flexibility and gives you the buffer to do any big dreams that you want to do in the future. If you start too late, or what would seem like too late in your 30s or whatever, it can feel extremely overwhelming. And you're like focusing on your score, and it's not moving fast enough, et cetera, et cetera. And I think like building your credit at a really early age, especially if you have the opportunity to go to school and use that as your way to do it, I think it's really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like when I found out about secured credit card, I was like, what? Why didn't anyone tell me about this? And a lot of people are scared of credit cards because you see, don't get credit cards, don't spend a lot of money that you don't have. But with a credit card where you're like, okay, you have the money, but you spend the money that you have to pay it off, you actually build your credit. And so when I learned that was the best thing that I ever learned. I was able to build my credit. So then when you want to make business moves, you actually have your own line of credit where you can start something, and you have a bank that's willing to loan you money because you've built that relationship over time. So yeah, I agree with you. A secured credit card and building your credit. And something else that I feel like is important that we don't talk about enough is investing. Like really teaching, especially millennials, like things to invest in, and things you believe in. Like I invest, being a 13-year vegan, I invest in like things that are vegan and things that are eco-friendly, and investing in things that you're passionate about that you can see grow over time. And getting that type of advice, I think, is so powerful and empowering. And I didn't know that growing up. I was just like, I'm just saving and saving and saving. And when I graduated college, I saved so much. And I'm like, man, that money could have been making money for me. So I think talking about investing and investing in things you're passionate about is something that I would tell my younger self, is just like, don't be afraid to invest, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I don't know how to invest. I don't know. And talking to people that can mentor you. Like I talk to people all the time about having, your A-team, a mentor, like someone you can go to, a best friend, or at least a therapist that you can cry to, and building that team around you. And when you have a mentor that can help you with things like investing and moving past your fears, I think that's also powerful to realize we don't have to do it by ourselves. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, because generations are different from their parents, we feel like I'm all alone. Nobody thinks like me. No one else is going through these problems, but that's just not true. So many people are, but we're just not talking about it. So it goes back to having those conversations, saying I don't know, asking for help, and being willing to, start building credit, start investing, and knowing everyone can do this. And like some families, they start their children out of the womb. Here's an account, here's an investment. And I wasn't raised that way, but I would suggest it to every single person, every single family, even if it's $1 a month you're saving, $2, just start something so that you're building that, economic wealth. You're building your community by learning to save and invest and talking about it with your family.
Talking about it with your family. And I think a lot of younger people don't have that ability. Yeah. They feel like that's not something that is available to them or something that you should talk about. That's a private situation. And For a long time, I have two older brothers. We didn't talk about finances. But, as cliche as it sounds, you're better together. You learn, you go through the bumps together, you ask questions, you're open and honest, and you share. I think that's the biggest thing. There's not been one person that has gotten to where they want financially completely by themselves. And I think it is about relationships, and it's about not being scared to ask questions and utilizing your resources. And speaking about resources, how do we create impact through the resources that we already have? And I think that that's a question that a lot of millennials, a lot of people are asking, like, what small things can people do to create big impact on a world with a lot of different communities that need it?
Man, if we didn't see that in this last year, I don't know when we saw it. Like, every person realizing knowledge is powerful. Getting to know not only your community, but other communities and how they are struggling and hurting and in need, and how you can support not only yourself. And we talk a lot about that self-building, which is important, but also listening to other people and what they're going through. And when it talk about social impact, it's really knowing other people's pain and really understanding that our pain is not the same. What we need is not the same. Where some person might need that financial support, that other person might just need, the help just building their community, or just the knowledge about what to do versus just the handout. So I think really having those healing conversations with people all around us and listening to different ways people that aren't like us struggle, I feel like it builds us as a whole. Like, it really builds humanity. Then we realize that we don't all struggle in the same way. We don't all hurt in the same way. Seeing how we're similar, but also seeing how we're different and how we can support each other collectively.
And I think what's one of the best things about this country is that the ability for anything that's, quote unquote grassroots to really just make huge change. And I think, it can seem like you have to have all this control or power or access, but you don't have to anymore. One person, two people. What's trending right now is that band, the Linda Lindas, and that song they wrote, and it was just that one moment, and that's a grassroots moment of just really how they feel and how they speak. And there's so many organizations, from ours and to other ones, that you just change a couple lives, or you join another small grassroots organization. There's mutual aid groups in every major city that are doing amazing things that just need hands. And I think, time in hands is everything. And then as things progress, you find other ways to be helpful.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, there's a lot of people that align themselves with their beliefs through the clothes they wear, the food they eat, the organizations they support. I had a woman come up to us in the WNBA, and she said the reason why she bought season tickets was because what we stand for. And I think that we're seeing across the board in our world a lot of people that are really backing up what their values and beliefs are with what they buy, what they purchase, what they align themselves with. So what would you say, would you purchase from some place or a brand that didn't necessarily represent what you believed in?
I think a lot of the conversation we had today is, a little bit about saving money and being thoughtful and budgeting and et cetera, but just the exact opposite. You have just as much power on what you buy. If you don't have the ability to save because you're kind of, paycheck to paycheck, you do have total control over what you spend your money on. Yep. And I think that you should. And I think it should be a part of how you spend your money. It's a part of how we spend our money and where we shop. And maybe I have to drive 2 more minutes, or go 1 more metro stop, or take a different bus, or pick a different provider on Instacart or something like that. It is all there. And the information on why you would want to spend your money with someone and why you wouldn't, it's very accessible. And I think it's important to do personally. And I think I think young people are really making that movement happen. They're really making, really have power with what they spend.
Absolutely. I think people realize you vote with your dollar. Like, what you're buying, what you're paying for, that is what you're promoting. Even if it's something you need, you're still promoting this company, you're showing what you're using, and that's also how you can empower, small businesses and, businesses, from, people of color, or people that are usually, they don't have the money to do all the big marketing and get on the big billboards. But if you find a company like, oh, that have like the same quality or better quality in this product that I'm using every single day. Just putting that investment into a small business is voting with your dollar. It is helping that business. It's helping that business's family. So I think shopping small businesses, and also, you know, this whole ride share, you know, us ride sharing, that's saving the economy, that's saving on gas. So even the things that we do with our lifestyle, making our lifestyle and creating a lifestyle around what you believe in, that is actually impacting. Looking at every product you have in your kitchen and saying, okay, how can I switch some of these products from these big companies to smaller companies? That one little thing is not even going to be better for the environment, because a lot of those smaller companies are more eco-friendly, but it's also going to be so great for those families that have those companies that, you know, their meal depends on their sales that they get that day. So I think we're seeing a lot more with millennials and people who care about the economy, who are just like voting with their dollar and saying, okay, I'm gonna make that extra stop, or I'm gonna vote, go to a bookstore or place that isn't like the biggest bookstore to buy my books. And I think making those decisions impact the community in a big way. So the more we can make those just intentional decisions to wrap our lifestyle around something that is supportive, not only to what's easiest and fastest and gives us that instant gratification, but those things that might take a little bit more, like you said, Eric, but it's really impacting the communities.
Yeah, and not just purchasing. I mean, I think like, you know, what you and the WNBA did was in terms of like what you spend your money on, same for like what we need to perform at our best for you. Yeah. So the company that I work for thrives. You know, it's about, you know, we may not see eye to eye, but we can definitely meet in the middle. And this is what I need from you, and this is what you need from me. And in exchange, you will see that people will react to that and want to pursue that product moving forward.
And I have so much hope for this generation to get it right. You all, it looks like we're coming to an end. I want to say thank you to you both. Because this was a very intimate, meaningful conversation that we were able to share. So this was great to hear a different perspective, in the bigger picture, and to talk about money in a really open and honest way. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to continuing having conversations.
For sure.
And to all of you watching, thank you for joining and asking such great questions. Koya, Eric, and I have all had the chance to talk more about money and values, and you can find those videos here on CapitalOneCafeEvents.com in the video gallery, where there's a lot of other great info as well. Thank you so much for joining us today.